creativity is often more about problem solving than it is about art making. And I think it's important to remember people say, oh, I'm not creative, I can't draw. Well, every human being on the planet is very creative. My husband is a software developer for 30 plus years. He's extremely creative in his approach to software development, right?
Welcome to Zestful Aging, the podcast where we celebrate aging with vibrance and we defy the stereotypes of what it means to age. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, a psychotherapist of more than 30 years, here to introduce you to my off-the-mainstream guests who will energize and inspire you. My hope is to create optimism about getting older and help you cultivate zest and joy in this season of your life. And I love to hear feedback from you, my listeners. Please drop me a line at zestfulaging@gmail.com. I read every single comment. And to find out more about this podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. Well, funny question. Who is the person in your family who knows when you need to buy milk or send a birthday card? You've likely spent your life caring for others, building a career, and you've done it very well. But now you see that life is marching on and there is going to be an end to this party. And you might be asking yourself, when is my turn going to come? As a therapist, I hear this a lot. You know, we've been serving others for so long, we don't even know what brings us joy. And I've had that experience with clients where they simply don't know what to do after retirement or after their kids leave or perhaps a marriage ends. They sit in my office and they're sort of deer in the headlights. So I think that this episode is going to really help with this. My guest today is Minette Riordan, and this is going to be a new name. Let's see if she likes it. A powerhouse creative queen.
I love it.
Oh, and she has a PhD from Stanford. She uses creativity to help us discover a life that's juicy with exploration and aliveness. Woo, I just got my own little chills there. She's going to tell us how art practices can enhance our lives as we age. And I am so excited to speak with her today. Welcome to the show, Minette.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on today.
I just like your site. I love your sort of sisterhood theme, and you have such beautiful ways of articulating what women our age are just desperately searching for. You know, it's so funny. I told you off mic about our creative hub, and I hope Sue's listening to this, our creative hub. And, you know, sometimes there's a question, do we need to have presenters? Do we need to have some training or so? We just want to sit there and hang out with each other and look at each other's stuff. We pass it around and ooh and ah and say, how did you even make this? What was the idea? And we just never want to leave. It's standing room only, and it's just the most luscious thing. So I have a sense of how spectacular this can be for us. But I guess what I want to start with, and this may be kind of an unfair question, but why is making art so good for us?
It's such a great question, and I'm so sad I'm so far away from your creative hub. It sounds like just a joyful,
it's pretty delicious.
Joyful fun. It
Yes.
does sound delicious, and one of my favorite things to do is to gather creative women together in person, especially where you don't have to think about what to make, but you just get to walk up, sit down, and make. And I think it's something that we're longing for. So why does art make make a difference in our lives. We could go down the path of science or psychology, but where I'd like to start is with some of the things you mentioned ahead of time are what are those of us in our second halves of life seeking? What I see, and I wonder if you do as well, Nicole, is this longing to reconnect with ourselves. And there comes a point where we've tried all the things. We have shelves full of self-help books. We've done the journaling and the morning pages. And yet it feels like we're going around in circles and not really making that deeper connection to our own inner knowing. Deep reflection requires us to pause and listen. And I find that making art is a powerful tool for self reflection and for listening to our own inner knowing. It's what helps us to make what's going on inside of us visible outside of us. As smart, high achieving, educated
Mhm.
women, we tend to stay stuck in our heads and disconnected from our
Mhm.
feelings and emotions. So I found that practices like simple doodling or intuitive collage is my favorite way to do this kind of work, helps us tap into a part of us that perhaps has been buried for a long time.
Mhm.
And I see the magic happen over and over again where all of a sudden our art tells a story that needs to be told, but we couldn't see or we couldn't think our way through. So it creates a new level of recognition and I would say honesty with ourselves. It's like
Mm.
that radical honesty of, oh, there I am. There's that part of
Mm.
me, that archetype, that in Richard Swartz language, that part of
Mhm.
me, right? It helps us recognize, honor, and accept the parts of ourselves. So I would say that's my answer about how I see particularly the expressive arts
Mhm.
supporting men and women, although I work primarily with women in the second half of life, reconnect with themselves. The number one question I get asked over and over again is, who am I?
Mhm. So, yeah, so who am I? Oh god, I had so many questions. So, I have to back up because I thought, "Oh, wait, I gotta follow that." Talk a little bit about making the inside or helping the inside come outside. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so where do I want to start with that? So it's funny because it's like it's the on the whole journey that I'm on personally this year. My word of the year for 2026 is visibility. And it's not how do I become more visible out in the world? It's how do I become more visible to myself? What
Oh,
is going on inside of me and how do I access it? Because I'm 61. I have done the therapy, the coaching, I've read the books, I've written the books,
I've read
right?
I've read
Yeah,
the books.
I read the books. There's so many, right? Phenomenal books. But, it's, you get these inspired insights, but insights don't create change,
Right.
right?
Don't I know it as a
Oh,
therapist, right?
yes, they create that momentary, oh, but
That's why.
yes, but how do we actually create change? It's, I would say, by
Mm.
deepening our self reflective practices. And I am not someone as a active creative who loves sitting meditation, and which is another beautiful way to access what's going on inside. But even with practices like meditation, talk therapy, coaching, retreats, and I've done them all. There's something missing for those of us that need the visual manifestation of what's happening inside. So
Mhm.
the way that we use art in all of my programs is once I get it up and out, and I'm sure you've seen this probably in writing or art therapy practices, when you get it up and outside and onto the page, you can recognize it. You can see the story in action and then have the power to rewrite the story, to tell a new story about what's possible. It allows you to heal some of the past, but I
Mhm.
also find that it anchors insights in a whole different way.
Wow. To say more of that, I'm just like listening to you with my eyes closed because I'm trying to take it
Mm.
all in. Hi, Zesties. Well, we all know that exercise is really important, especially as we age. Some say it's the most important thing you can do to stay healthy. But many of us find that it's really easy to start an exercise routine, but it's hard to keep it up. That's why we see so many exercise bikes and machines being used as clothes hangers come March. Am I the only one who has bought a gym membership that turned out to be a total waste of money? At this point in life, I want to do things that are good for me, but also fun. You'll never find me at a class called boot camp because life is hard enough. And that is why I love my rebounder. What is a rebounder? Well, it's a mini trampoline that has so many health benefits, it's kind of crazy. It turns out that gently jumping up and down provides excellent benefits to our whole body. It helps clear lymphatic drainage, which is basically toxic waste in our bodies. And get this, NASA uses it to help their astronauts reacclimate when they've been up in space. And I'm not even going to go into the improvements in complexion and mood. Let's just say it's hard to be in a bad mood when you're jumping to your favorite music. It's like your own dance party. But if you're interested in a rebounder, please take my advice. Don't buy a cheap one. They can actually be dangerous. I would recommend the one I have, which is a NEEDAK rebounder. It's NEEDAK, and mine's going on about 20 years old. I use it with light weights, and I've actually used it to train for the senior tennis games, as well as my Camino walk in Spain. And it's also great to use in upstate New York in the winter when the weather is awful, which is pretty often. So right now you can get a free rebounder cover at NEEDAK if you use the coupon code ZESTFUL. So again, NEEDAK, NEEDAK. And if you have any questions, check out my YouTube demo. It's my most watched YouTube to date. So happy jumping, and I would love to hear how you like it. I find that to be very true with neurographic art.
Yes.
And I was a little humility probably could be used here. I was like, yes, yeah, that's nice. That's lovely. In fact, at first I was like, that's not really attractive, but let me do some botanicals and some shading, and that's so much more satisfying visually. But that word anchoring really makes sense when you're not thinking. You're just letting it do its own thing.
Exactly. And I love Neurographica. I find it very relaxing, and I have a lot of creative practices for accessing calm, so more mindful creative practices. For me,
Mhm.
that's different. That's about calming our nervous system, right?
Yes.
And Neurographica helps us to rewire some of those synapses within. It's a great process. But when I think about making the inside visible on the outside, remember that as human beings, image is our first language.
Mm.
It's the way we learn, it's the way we take in the world, and as soon
Mhm.
as we start speaking and then reading and then writing, we lose connection with the potency of
Mm.
the visual.
Mhm.
So when we can paint how we feel or draw how we feel or as I said, intuitive collage is my favorite. Take one magazine, randomly rip out 4 or 5 images, cut them out, and piece them on to a surface, a piece of paper, an index card. This new story emerges that always is miraculous, insightful,
Mhm.
sometimes sad and sorrowful. It allows us to also, and I know that you do this in your work as well, to have a little bit of a distance from the story so that we
Mhm.
can see the story, we can understand the story, but
Mhm.
we're not in the story.
It's such an interesting thing because I did this collage recently and I actually put it up on my office wall. And there's such a fascinating process that happens. Like, I recognize this person, I
Yes.
know who this is, but what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like there's this deep recognition. Of course, there are ferns on there. And of course, there's wild stuff and mushroom and all this stuff. Forest, fun. But like, there was it was whispering to me
Yeah. Yeah.
in ways that I didn't know were underneath some of those basic things that I know I like walking in the woods, but something was just kind of, it was so tantalizing and I still don't understand it all. It's up on my wall and I look at it, and that part, how it kind of gives you back to yourself.
Yes. That's a beautiful way to say it. It reflects, it becomes a mirror that
Mm,
reflects a part of self. And I love how you said, oh, there's something underneath, there's something calling me. And that's where I would ask the image to literally speak and say, who are you? And what do you have
mhm,
to offer me today? And,
mhm,
and so it's almost like some of the chair exercises, right? Where you're allowing, or puppet play, even where you're allowing the image to speak and inform rather than assessing or interpreting. It's giving
mm.
the image the opportunity to share the story. And to me, that's where the magic happens.
The question I like is, what do you want me to know?
Yes. Yes. Love that
Mhm,
question too. Yes.
mhm,
Yeah. So I love intuitive painting for this as well. I love having a client one on one in front of a large canvas and having them paint through a stuck emotion or energy that they don't understand or can't name, or people that can't articulate verbally emotions can often paint their way through them and release them onto a canvas. And that is another way that I find art making to be so healing. And I love when someone else writes a book that proves everything that I intuitively know to be true, but I didn't have to write the book. And in the last couple of years, there have been two seminal works that came out. One is Your Brain on Art,
Oh.
which is a phenomenal book written by, I believe, by a journalist who did the research, who talks about why art is basically the third leg of whole the wholeness of our well-being, or the fullness of our well-being, right
Mhm.
alongside exercise and healthy eating.
Wow.
Creativity is the third leg of that stool.
And
It
when you don't, when you're, as I saw something on your website about, do you feel dried up? I find that it's painful. There's like a background starvation or something when you're too busy with tasks and administrative crap and all this stuff. When you're not making, it
yes.
feels it's deeply troubling in a way that I can understand this brain on art, where it feels like an evolutionary issue.
Yes. Yes, and I'm forgetting the name of the second book right now, but
Mhm.
it's a woman who has taken the scientific perspective on why creativity matters so much, and I will send you the name
Okay.
afterwards for
Great.
the show notes. And it was also a great read where she's, literally putting all the little sensors on people to see what happens in our brains when we're creating. And like, it is a whole brain activity. It has been disproven multiple times over. There's no such thing as left brain or right brain.
Oh,
And
wow.
actually, that creatives are very whole brained because making art requires us to access every part of our being. It's very thoughtful, often very detail oriented and very technical, as well as iterative and innovative, right? Putting, there's nothing new under the sun these days. Where creativity flows from is
Mm.
someone's ability to take a piece of one thing and a piece of another thing and put them together in innovative ways that no one has seen before.
Mhm.
And creativity is often more about problem solving than it is about art making. And I think it's important to remember people say, oh, I'm not creative, I can't draw.
Mhm.
Well, every human being on the planet is very creative. My husband is a software developer for 30 plus years. He's extremely creative in his approach to software development, right? And a pianist is creative, and yet that is also art. So what's the difference, right? So
Mm.
the official definition of creativity is about problem solving and how we put ideas together in new and unusual ways, which is different than art. And it was during the Renaissance, because I did some research on this, where creativity started to get conflated with art making. But if
Oh.
we look back to the masters, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, they were the original multi-passionate creative beings,
Yes.
right? Where they were studying anatomy. I think it was Da Vinci who was paying hospitals to go in and dissect dead people's bodies, right? To
Mhm.
really understand anatomy. So they understood the true Renaissance men, right? They understood math and science and art and technical skill and how to make their own paints. And I think we have gotten into this place where we judge art as either something that's in a museum or something that has to make us money. And we say, well, I can't do that or that, so why try? So we become very disconnected from what it looks like to actually express ourselves creatively using
Mhm.
something as simple like neurographic is a great example. All you need is a paper and a black marker.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
it. And they turn out beautifully
Mhm.
in
And
the end.
weird.
Yes, and weird. And I love the weird. I love the
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Or or the practice of Zentangle, which is a
Mm.
mindful way of drawing that is done in black and white on 3.5 inch square tiles, and it's a mindful
Mhm.
form of drawing. Or the latest craze that people are loving by the hundreds and hundreds of thousands is slow stitching. What
Yes.
what might have been embroidery in the past, but
Oh.
they're all tools that combine making something pretty with calming our nervous system,
Mhm.
right? And so it's allows us to let go of these beliefs about what art is and settle into process over product.
It's so true what you're saying. I interviewed a woman from Scotland years ago before slow stitching was a thing, and she did this phenomenal combination of slow stitching on antique aprons because
Oh,
she had had a history. Her family had a history of domestic violence, and
mm,
so what she wanted to do is bring together the symbolism of women and in that generation, because we're probably not wearing well aprons anymore, and she was crudely stitching in words or parts of poetry, and it wasn't embellished. It wasn't beautiful. It was quite crude in the way, and not verbally, but just, basic rawness, which brought her brought all of these pieces together of metabolizing the reality of where she came from, and as you say, taking the inside, bringing it outside, seeing it and making it something different, creating something out of those feelings.
Oh, I love that. And before we started recording, we were talking about reusing things from the past to make them
Mhm.
into something new. And I think there's a beautiful trend in the last decade about whether it's mixed media or slow stitching about using recycled materials. Like what's
Mhm.
in your junk mail pile that would go in the trash that you could turn into a book. And all of those are fun, but they're also healing, both for our nervous systems and the stories we tell ourselves about why we can't make art. Brene Brown, in one of her books or articles I read over the years, she calls it creativity scars. And we all have these creativity scars,
Mm.
whether it was a parent, a teacher, or a
Mhm.
peer that at some point in our very early age said, that doesn't look like a horse. And
Ah.
we
Yeah, the sky
instantly,
isn't supposed to be pink.
yes, right. You know, trees
Mm.
aren't purple. Like, and as soon
Mm.
as we, our fragile little young egos get
Oh,
that
yes.
criticism, we shut down. And all the studies around people and creativity show that from about 0 to 7 or 8, we are so, like our creativity is off the charts. And then by about 10, we don't believe we're creative anymore. And it often takes women a lifetime to
Mhm.
reconnect with that inner 5-year-old who loved to make pink skies and purple trees.
Mm.
And
I
it's not,
Oh, that's fabulous. I mean, that's the crux of your work is
yes.
bringing them back to that. I do have a funny little story. My mother was a professional artist and she banned coloring books because of just what you're saying. And my grandfather used to sneak them to me like
Oh my gosh.
contraband
I
because I
love
thought,
that.
of course, like that's all you want, right? What is this coloring book stuff? But her idea was exactly what you're saying is do not color in those lines. You
Yeah.
need to be doing your own thing. And I understand that's a pretty unique situation.
It is, and
Yeah.
but it's both and, right? And I love coloring books because they take decision making, like adult coloring books,
Mm.
especially simple coloring books, not some of the really extremely challenging ones with a million small places, but
Yes.
coloring books and in particular mandala designs have been
Really?
shown to support people in reconnecting to their creativity more than any other thing because it takes away the fear of the blank page.
Oh, good to know. So that would be a way to start healing
Yes.
the creativity scar to say, okay, look, I'm not going to give you a blank page, but here's something that is going to, it's almost like training wheels, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
it
Well, that's
is.
so
And,
interesting.
you know, I would also add to that, right, that I think it was the American Association of Psychology that did a study on college students and using coloring to help them calm down before test taking. And they found it was tremendously more relaxing for students to color the mandala designs. And it was actually increase their anxiety to give them a blank page.
That's fascinating. Oh, I love that information because of course one of the questions I was going to have for our listeners who say I want to dip my toe in this is like where do we even start? There's you go into an art store or even one of the chain stores and you just, it's just too
Overwhelming.
overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. One of
Yeah,
my
where do I
very
start?
dearest friends called me in a panic one time and saying, you know, I want to do something creative, but I don't even know how to get started. And I'm terrified of walking into like a Dick Blick, for example, where it's just, you know, aisle after aisle after aisle of all these
Mm,
different supplies. And how do you know where to
and they're
start?
so beautiful.
And they
Oh
are
my
so
god.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
then you buy the supplies and you get them home and you're like, oh, but they're so beautiful. I'm not worthy of using them. So our own inner sense of self esteem, self worth, and even self acceptance are really triggered by feeling that I can't, I don't know how, it's a waste of
Mhm.
time, it's selfish, or
It's not productive.
it's
What do I
not
have to
productive,
show for myself?
or I'm going to mess it up, right? Like
Mm.
I'm going to waste these beautiful handmade watercolors that I bought
Mm.
if I make ugly art, right?
Wow.
And I would say that the only way to get started falling in love with creative process is through what I call deep play, which is to have zero end goal in mind and to
Mhm.
grab those supplies, because there's you, I'm sure you've seen them on Instagram. There's all these memes about how the latest hobby is collecting art supplies, not using them,
Yes.
which makes me so sad, right? And so I encourage people to play with their supplies, because it's the only way that you're going to get to know them, right? Is through actually using them and seeing what they can do. And you also
Mm.
learn what you love. Like we were talking about different ways of dyeing fabrics and, making
Mhm.
books and all that. There's so many options. The options are overwhelming. And until we approach art making through the lens of your inner kindergartner, through the lens of beginner's mind, you're just going
Mhm.
to be stuck,
Lost. Just lost.
lost,
Yep.
and even go buy kids coloring books and color outside the lines. When we give ourselves permission to let go of the rules and
Mm.
the restrictions and the doubts and the criticism that we receive throughout our
Mhm.
life, or the belief it has to be productive and monetizable, which in this country
Mhm.
we think everything has to be
Yes,
productive and
that's
monetizable.
right.
Play is the antidote for all of this, and in particular, creative play and creative self expression. And
Oh,
the more we play, the more we connect to our inner artist. And then the more that inner artist helps us to answer that question we started with, who am I? At this stage of my life,
mm,
who am I? And what
mhm,
creates meaning in my life?
mhm. I'm sure you thought about this, but like more and more, I think this is true, and especially in light of AI, which everything now we're seeing is just slop. It's computer, created slop. And I think that, and I'm sure you have more thoughts about this, that you're talking about the antidote. It seems to me that creative play is the antidote to the increasingly fake world we live in.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say the fake world was there long before AI stepped into
Mm-hmm.
the with
Mm-hmm.
the, I only take pictures of what's right in my life, of what's pretty in my life, or
Mm-hmm.
when I'm having a good hair day, right? There's an artifice in the digital world that we have to be mindful of always. But I have a different opinion about AI, because it can be incredibly playful for
Hmm.
people. We use a tool called Midjourney, which is a visual, graphic AI. And it is so much fun to go in there and play with image ideas. And it often becomes a translator for a visual image that I have in my head that perhaps I want to paint. And I have all these pieces and I can't quite see how to put it together. So it becomes a partner for taking, again,
Mm-hmm.
what's in me and making
Mm-hmm.
it visible. And then when I can see it, I go, oh, now I can paint it. And so it goes full circle back to an original painting that will change and evolve. But it becomes this really playful translation tool for those of us that get really frustrated with, I can see what I want it to look like in my head, but I don't know how to get that on my paper,
That's
right?
very
So
interesting. I would not have thought that, but I can understand how that would be. It's a tool. It would be a
it
tool
is.
for you.
It is. Yeah. And
Mhm.
yes, we have to have caution. Yes, we need to be mindful of how we're using it. And yes, it's easy. Like someone told me the story the other day of some woman, and it's not secretive. She says she uses AI, but there's a lot of AI that will create videos of you that look like you and sound like you, of you talking. And she's built this huge following on Instagram, and the entire thing is generated 100% with AI.
Mhm.
And I'm like, isn't that interesting? So
So
do
there's
we,
podcast interviewers now that are
yeah,
all simulated. Yeah, it's then it makes us think about, well, what makes us human, and that's a whole
right.
other
That
conversation.
is a whole other
But it does
conversation.
seem like at least part of the answer is what you're talking about is creative play and how deeply that resonates with our very essence as humans.
Yes, absolutely. And we have forgotten as a culture, especially here in the United States, is what I can speak to. I don't know how true that is in other parts of the world, but we have forgotten how to play or what play means or what does play look like. We have a program I run called the Midlife Renaissance, and it's all about reconnecting to different types of play because at 61 I'm not going to play like I did when I was 5, but I
Mm-hmm.
can bring the energy and the curiosity of the 5-year-old to everything that I'm doing in my life
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh, that is it right there. And what a time to do it, right? When things are, I think, more and more clear. When we hit our 60s, things get into pretty stark relief that we know that this party is going to end. What do we want to be doing with our time and energy?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I have a elder circle call that I lead. And that's exactly the question that they're asking in their mid 60s all the way to their mid 80s. And it's very different to ask yourself that question at 40, at 50, at
Mm-hmm.
60, at 70,
Mm-hmm.
and at 83. Right. And yet there's this longing that I see, one, to express ourselves creatively, and two, to still feel like we're making a contribution, whether that's in our family, in our community, in our country, or globally. There's still a desire to
Mm-hmm.
be visible, right? And to be valued for the wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that we've accumulated
Mm-hmm. Is
in our.
that, do you feel like, where you are in your space, are you finding that starting to shift at all? Is there an awareness that as we age, there's value there? Are you seeing more of that?
So it's a combination. I see my 80-year-olds in my community really owning their wisdom, right? That
Mm-hmm.
lived wisdom and value, where those women that are in those first few years post retirement in particular, and that had careers that they loved or, find themselves feeling invisible,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Where you go from, I'm at the top of my game, everything's going great, my opinions are valued, I have a say here, to all of a sudden I retire and no one
Mm-hmm.
wants to hear what I have to say. And yet I
Mm-hmm.
know I still have value to offer. And so there's curiosity about how do we do that? And this is again where art and play come into being. How do I do that without it have to be work? Right?
And do you think, and this may be getting really far afield, but I feel like I'm starting to sort of get the sense that many women, middle agers and above, are saying, let's just burn this whole thing down and start over because it is not working for most of us.
I think it's that idea of I have no more F's to give. I don't know if you
Yes.
allow cursing
I,
on your
uh,
on
yep.
your show or not,
Burst
but
it
no more,
up.
yeah, no more fucks to give, right?
Okay.
It's where we stop seeking external approval,
Yes.
where we stop having to or trying to meet the needs of everyone else, and we want to do things differently And some of the women want a platform for how do I share out my wisdom? I think they are seeking for that. There's some who want to burn it all down. And then there's a huge part in their 60s that are just learning to see their own intrinsic worth and value, that are just learning to play again after decades of caregiving and
Mhm.
career and, growing kids and dealing with aging parents. We're the sandwich generation, right?
Yes,
And
that's
I
right.
think, so much of my population we're the Gen Xers. And, everyone says like, it's really sad. What we're the smallest generation. So, this is like, from 65 to what 75 or 80 would have been the Gen Xers. We were the latchkey kids, two working parents, told we could have it all, and we're
Mm,
left with exhaustion and
mm,
confusion, and I
mm,
don't I don't know who I am. And I'll bring it back full circle here, is the women that I'm attracting in my communities in particular are longing for a way to express themselves creatively, and they don't know where to start because they know that through creative expression they're sharing
mhm.
their value.
And the power of doing that, standing next to another woman
Yes.
and
Yes,
see, I mean, that's magic in my way of thinking. As a therapist even, I mean, individual therapy is primarily what I do, but boy, a group has a whole different
it
power
does.
to it. And I could see doing this process and making these realizations and feeling so exploring this in a safe space, which I know is very important to you. It's transformational.
It is. It is. It's deeply transformational. And in fact, I hosted a workshop yesterday for about 75 women. And the number one takeaway was I'm not alone, because no one talks about
Mm,
what's happening in midlife. And yet, as a therapist, there are very clear developmental milestones that we
mhm,
go through as we age. There's the question about identity. There's a redefining of our spirituality. Our relationships are changing with our kids, with our parents, with our peers. Having close girlfriends becomes more important,
mhm,
and dealing with health related issues,
mhm,
menopause, aging, right? All these things
mhm,
are normal. They're normal. And when we can normalize it and have rooms where we can talk about, my adult children aren't speaking to me right now, kind of conversations, or
mhm,
I'm exhausted from caregiving for my
mhm.
spouse and my parents,
And I
right?
feel resentful and
Yes, yes,
I'm over it, but I can't
yes,
tell anybody that, you know.
right.
Oh my gosh. I imagine as a person leading these, creating these and leading these, it must be emotional for you to be in this space with so much going on.
I walk away from every single community call so uplifted,
Mm,
inspired, and deeply touched. Yes, there's a lot of emotion that happens, right? I'm very comfortable with other people's tears. My,
mm.
my family teases me that I haven't done my job if I didn't make someone cry. And it's
I've
not
heard
that,
that. I hear that from my editor.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's just our capacity for the work that we do for deep listening and
Mm.
asking the question that needs to be asked.
Oh my gosh. That nobody else asks. I mean, you know what's really interesting? God, I'm talking a lot about myself today, which I don't often do, but you're making me think of, sitting in a therapist's office or in a retreat like you have or on a call, not having somebody be with you and not checking their phone
Yeah.
is becoming obsolete.
It is. We've forgotten
Uninterrupted
how to
attention.
listen or be present.
Absolutely. And to just
Yes,
be in that space and not be constantly distracted and really immerse yourself in that. I just I just can't imagine what that must feel like.
Yeah, it's
Do your
amazing.
do your people stay in touch sometimes after the retreats?
Oh, definitely, and they
Yeah.
come to multiple retreats, and I have an online membership program. You mentioned at the beginning the Sisterhood of Wisdom and Wonder, and
Mm,
that's in our this October will be 2 years, and, people some people come and go, it's the nature of a membership, but so many of them come and stay for the conversations, right? Just
mm,
to be there and listen, and my favorite part, and I'm sure you experience this as well, it's not about anything that I say. Sometimes it's what someone else in the room says, and everyone goes, "Oh, that," right? And I
mm,
think that when we hear it's another way of making that inner what's happening inside more visible, is hearing
mhm,
it reflected back to you, or someone else affirming, "Oh, I feel that way too."
mhm,
Right, there was somebody in
mm,
this workshop yesterday talking about the void that happens in this space when you retire, and she's like, "I don't know what time to get up, I don't know if I should have a schedule, I don't know how to
mhm,
fill my time, I was so creative in my job, but what do I do now? I don't know," and I'm like, "Who else in the room feels that way?" And all of the hands went up, and, the
mhm,
little thumbs up on the Zoom, and so
mm,
that sense of being affirmed
mhm,
helps us feel not so alone in doing our inner work, right? And I'm a huge fan of therapy. And I love working with clients that are doing the creative exploration with me and working with a therapist, because
mhm.
there's always crossover,
Oh, yes.
right? And they inform each other so powerfully. And so I'm not a therapist, right? I'm an expressive artist. And there are times when we need both, and when you can ask a question that I don't even know to ask, or the person with me creates a piece of art that they bring. I had this one client, she would make art in our midlife renaissance program, and then take it to her therapist and
Oh,
take it
wow.
even deeper. So,
Beautiful.
I think we find the places where we get to be witnessed and held in a way that
Mhm,
matters. And some people need the one on one. Some people, like most of the women in the sisterhood, they thrive in community, and they want the accountability and the connection of the group. Right. And then other people are like, nope, I want one on one. Right. I want to go deeper. So it's like there's finding what serves you is so important at this age and stage, and
mhm,
asking yourself the question of not what does my head need, but what does my heart need right now?
mhm. Oh, wow. It is just you're hitting all the spots. That's all I can say. You're obviously so thoughtful about this, and so passionate about I can hear it in your voice, how
Very passionate, like,
excited and, like,
yeah.
you're like a kid in a candy store here.
I am, and why did it take me, when did I start this business in this version? I've been an entrepreneur for a really long time. This is my third business, but it's the one that feels most aligned
Mhm.
and most, like I can really feel like it's my calling to do
Mm.
this work.
And I know there was a little reluctance to call yourself an artist.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's like a whole nother
That's another
podcast.
that's another p episode.
Yes, I also grew up with a mom who had a master's in fine arts and sculpture, and, she was the
Ah,
real artist
yeah. Oh,
in the
yes.
family.
Interesting.
Yep, and I
Oh,
was the academic for a long time, and writing was my primary form of expression, and I struggled to find my artistic voice. I was already painting and selling painting and still not saying I was an artist.
oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's remarkable.
yeah.
Well, I just love what you do. It's got so much heart in it. Where can people find out? You have a great website too. There's so much there. Where can people find out more about all of your offerings?
Yeah, for sure. The website is the hub and the place to start, and it's just
Mhm,
simply my name,
mhm.
MinetteRiordan.com.
Okay.
And the other place I would encourage people to go get a taste of the type of work I do is my YouTube channel, which
Okay.
is also like I'm Dr. Minette Riordan on every social media platform.
Okay.
I'm very easy to find, but YouTube is where I love to hang out. And
Okay.
yeah, so I'm in the middle of a 100-day project at the recording of this, just halfway through. And I'm journaling my process on YouTube of doing this 100-day project right
I
now.
love that. Well, you have inspired me to get back to it. I love my colored pencils. I take them around in the car. Anytime, I have a few minutes, I take out my little sketch pad and just start drawing
I
stuff.
love that.
It's
Beautiful.
like my little friends, they come on and, well, I have
Yeah.
different kinds, and then some go with different paper, and
Yes.
this is like,
What's your favorite brand?
oh, that's so controversial. I, I, I like Faber-Castell.
Yep.
Um, but I'm still exploring because, of course, there's the wax version, right, and the
Mhm.
non-wax version. I'm still trying to figure out, and then the paper, right? And
Yes.
so for neurographics, it's tricky because you're using marker and pencil,
Yeah.
and so there's a whole question about what kind of paper works well, and then the pencil, how smooth, but then
Yep.
does it bleed through with, I mean, it is a rabbit hole that can
It
be.
is, but I also
Yeah.
would say I love the Faber-Castells. I
Mhm.
love also, the, Prismacolors,
Of course.
except for the fact that they're so hard to sharpen, and I feel like there's so much waste from broken tips.
Yes.
It's a thing, but I do love the layering that you can do
Mhm.
with those Prismacolors. So
Oh, they're
I
gorgeous.
I have sets of all of them also. So,
Silky smooth. For Christmas, I got an
yes.
electric pencil sharpener, which
Yeah.
I thought I was being really clever, but it eats up the pencils,
It does, it
so
does.
I wasn't as
It's
clever as
worth
I
it
thought.
though to get that
Yeah.
really sharp
Oh,
tip.
it is true. It's so fun. Like, I took a picture of myself. I think I put in my newsletter about me getting my new pencils, like, as you say, a 5-year-old, like,
Yes.
oh, they're new. They're so beautiful.
I get it, I
Oh,
get
I
it.
bet you
Yes,
do.
I
Well, it has
do.
been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Minette. I love what you do, and I appreciate it, and I just can imagine the women that you've touched and 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 help make their lives so much juicier.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and I love as you can tell, I love talking about this, but I
Yes.
also have a lot of gratitude that I get to do this work, and thank you for letting me come on today and share something that's, so near and dear to my heart. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends.
Our theme song is All I Did Was Wait for You by Kjartan Abel. Visit Kjartan-Abel, that's KJARTAN-Abel, ABEL.com to hear more of Kjartan's work. And our technical director is Stephen Litweiler.
And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest. See you then.